Hello and welcome to my channel, Rhino here. Today, we're looking at a video that was sent to me by Jen Santanas on Twitter. It's from a channel called Life.Church, a name which is either an amusingly clever programming pun or a rather pathetic web browsing pun. I choose to believe amusingly clever programming pun, because that's how I saw it first, and it did make me giggle a little. But upon closer inspection, unfortunately it looks like .church is actually a valid top-level domain, and their website is literally life.church, so it's not even a pun. What a shame. Anyway, it's all about porn, so you just know it's going to be fun. Let's go!
If those of you, maybe you're about my age, you realize that when we were growing up, you didn't have the easy access to porn that so many people have today on mobile devices and such.
I was part of the first generation that hit the age where porn becomes interesting, right around the time access to it started getting easy, though load times on dial-up were pretty painful.
I had a friend named Steven who discovered his dad's secret stash. And Stephen came to school to tell me, oh my gosh, you're not gonna believe what I've found. You wanna come to my house to look at it? That was the day, I hate to admit it, but I did not walk home from school, but I ran home from school to Stephen's house to see what he had found.
I mean, that seems like a perfectly normal reaction for an adolescent who is just getting to the age where that sort of material would be exciting to them. The initial excitement and anticipation is perfectly normal, nothing to be ashamed of.
I didn't want to feel that way. It wasn't premeditated, I didn't choose it, but that's what I felt.
Why would you not want to feel that way? Excitement and anticipation are fun feelings.
Then it was followed by this very real sense of guilt and shame.
Yeah, I can relate to that. If you are raised with the idea that naked human bodies are taboo, then enjoying seeing a naked human body will be both exciting and give you a feeling of shame. The shame shouldn't be there, but for a lot of people, it is.
Like I'd done something wrong, which was only amplified when I came home and my mom was waiting for me at home and said, hi, my little sugar sweetheart, I love you so much. I didn't tell her, but I thought, Mom, I'm going to hell.
My God, that's dark. We should not be raising children in a way that makes them afraid of being eternally tortured by God for the crime of having enjoyed seeing a naked body once. Also, fun fact, I was looking for a tasteful nude picture that is framed in a way that would allow me to include it in a YouTube video for emphasis here, and so discovered that if you go to photo.net and click on the nude and erotic category, it returns a bunch of pictures of pastries and desserts before you get to any naked people. I'm not saying pastries don't belong in the erotic category, they certainly do the trick for me, but I really was not expecting that at all.
And one of the most common ways that our enemy will attack warriors is with a battle in the mind of lust that's often triggered through pornography.
It doesn't have to be a battle, though. You could just recognize that lust is a normal, healthy feeling and learn how to deal with it in an appropriate way. Then it's not a battle. There doesn't have to be spiritual or emotional turmoil over it. You can just move on with your life as though nothing significant has happened, because it hasn't.
And that's why today's title is this, Your Porn Battle Plan. What's your plan?
Step 1, find porn. Step 2, pull down pants and or underwear. Step 3, fap. Step 4, profit.
Because every warrior goes into war with a plan for victory.
Well, if you're partial to those cock hero videos, then I guess the plan for victory is to hold it in until the end of the video.
The reality is, in all my years of pastoring great people, I've never ever met a warrior who said, my goal is to abandon my post.
I mean, if sitting on a post is your thing, then go for it. Just make sure you use plenty of lube to prevent any internal damage.
My goal is to become a slave to lustful images.
See, now that's the thing. If you stigmatize it, then being tempted into watching porn will feel like an addiction, that you're being trapped by it. But if you don't stigmatize it, if you recognize that sometimes people just get horny and there won't always be a partner available to take care of things, then you can come to understand that taking care of it yourself is normal and okay. And it's even okay to use visual aids while doing so, and they can be enjoyed without it being an addiction. Now, certainly it is possible for it to become a problem if porn use starts eating into your social life or disrupting an otherwise healthy relationship, but that's not the norm.
My goal is to wreck my life. lose the faith of the people that I love, hurt those who've trusted me.
See, now those are signs of unhealthy porn use. But unfortunately, all too often, those are also the signs of what would otherwise be healthy porn use, but is in an environment such as the one that you are attempting to create, where the porn is demonized and described as always evil. In a healthy relationship with healthy porn use, people can enjoy it together. Or they can be aware that the other member or members of the relationship are enjoying it by themselves. Mutual porn use can help foster an environment of trust and help minimize feelings of jealousy. After all, how can I be jealous of her checking out that hot dude when I am simultaneously watching that hot chick? There is a lot to be gained relationship-wise from mutual porn use that you are just flat out denying.
Betray my spouse.
Is it a betrayal if you do it together? It can be a betrayal if done separately, but it is not necessarily so. Only if done in secret, and/or porn is used as a replacement for intimacy with your partner. But as long as everybody is being open and honest, there's no betrayal.
And yet there are very good people who actually love God and do that all the time.
Yeah, actually, if you map out porn use per capita, it tends to be higher in very conservative religious communities. One potential reason is that the sexually repressive culture does not allow sexual exploration and expression, and so any exploration and expression that falls outside of the very narrow band of approved activity has to be done virtually, and it's relatively easy to keep it anonymous nowadays. Though a certain amount of stupidity will always get kids caught. I'm sure my dad would be able to tell you about getting an email from Playboy.com because they asked for an email address to get into the site, and I thought that was just going to be an age verification. You have to put in an adult's email address, and somehow they're going to know that that email address belongs to an adult. I didn't even consider the possibility that they would, send an email to that email address. Another explanation as to why sexually repressive communities engage in more porn use than the more liberal communities is because of reverse psychology. Forbidden fruit tastes the sweetest and all that. Some people enjoy the possibility of getting caught, so if getting caught is no longer a problem, it's not as much fun. In other words, the very act of outlawing it makes it that much more enjoyable for a not insignificant number of people.
In fact, just a little question. Let's talk about Christian men and Christian women. What percentage of Christian men and Christian women do you think view porn monthly? We're not talking about like 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, not like someone who's really ragingly addicted, but we're talking about someone that might really love God and go 2 or 3 weeks and then like stumble upon something and look for a few minutes and then, I shouldn't have done that, and then go a little while and then look again.
As if those are the only 2 possibilities. According to the survey that you are probably pulling this data from, 11% of married Christian men and 25% of unmarried Christian men view porn daily. The 64% number would have included these figures as well. And that was just looking at daily use. 37% use it several times per week. And I'm having a hard time finding information on this survey's methodology. I'm not sure how they would have accounted for the fact that this is self-report, and a certain percentage of people would have been lying because they don't want to admit anything that they see as shameful, even anonymously.
Today, we're going to look at a guy that was an amazing warrior. He was a man after God's own heart.
Ah, yes. King David, the guy who impregnated another man's wife and then had that man killed to avoid any confrontation on the issue. Are you trying to say that porn is as bad as getting someone's wife pregnant and then murdering her husband?
What's interesting about this guy is there were 929 verses about this warrior. The verses told us that he was a poet, he was a musician, he was a worshiper, he wrote about half of the Psalms, he was an amazing king, a fantastic leader.
He also enslaved entire races of people. Don't forget about that.
In so many ways, he was a brilliant and brave warrior.
I feel like you don't really have to be brave if you literally have an all-powerful being on your side telling you that you're going to win. So if the stories about David are true, then he didn't need to be brave because he is buddies with a god. Oh, also, if these stories are true, David got his position as king after God literally sent evil spirits to torment the king that came before David, so there's that as well.
And yet, with all these amazing qualities, this man is often remembered by something that is described in 3 out of 929 verses in the Bible.
Yes, he's remembered for one of his most heinous acts. Well, at least most heinous according to biblical morality. I would say conquering and enslaving an entire race of people is more heinous than one adultery murder, but obviously my morality isn't quite the same as biblical morality. So 3 verses out of 929 verses, that's roughly 0.3% of the total. Except that's not quite true, is it? The story of David and Bathsheba is told in 2 Samuel chapter 11, which is 27 verses long. And then it continues into chapter 12, ending at verse 25 with the birth of Solomon, making a total of 52 verses. 52 verses of 929 is 5.6%, much more significant.
One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. And David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "This woman, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came back, and he slept with her.
Yes. Are you suggesting that viewing porn is actually the same as having sex? I know that's the rhetoric that came from Jesus. Looking at a woman with lust in your heart is the same as committing adultery with that woman and all that. But really, Christians know it's not actually the same thing. Otherwise, with that 64% of men viewing porn stat, there would be a lot more divorce in the church than there actually is, especially since adultery is the one reason given in the Bible that could be considered adequate grounds for divorce. But no, instead, when I'm trying to figure out which studies and surveys you are referencing for your statistics, I instead find a bunch of websites that give advice on what to do if a woman finds her husband using porn, and the advice is usually to be understanding and try to work through the issue together. But when searching about what Christians should do if their husbands cheat, the option of divorce is right there, front and center. Of course, they also give advice on working through it, but while the advice on porn is usually framed as a struggle where we can expect to see relapses, and these need to be dealt with compassion and understanding, the advice on the actual cheating is that if it keeps happening, you need to move on. This disconnect betrays the fact that despite the words of Jesus, Christians don't actually see porn as being on par with adultery.
If you know the rest of the story, she got pregnant. David made a series of compounding bad decisions, and that was the beginning of indescribable pain for King David and for so many others.
Worth mentioning here is that included in so many others are the people like the child that God killed to punish David. And that was after God removed David's sin. So God removes David's sin from him, but still needs to kill something. So the child of David and Bathsheba will have to do.
A man after God's own heart, and he's often remembered by something described in 3 verses in the Bible.
52 verses, yeah.
What happened? Essentially, if we're going to describe and define as clearly as we can what happened in his life. The same thing that happens in the lives of so many warriors. The first thing is, we notice, David wasn't where he was supposed to be. So he saw something he wasn't supposed to see.
So David wasn't allowed to be on his own rooftop? I mean, I know that's a reference to the whole, it was spring, the time when kings go off to war, but David stayed home and sent Joab off to war instead thing. But are you telling me that this situation couldn't have happened at other times of the year? And really, this isn't a problem with him being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, sure, that could be argued, but ultimately this is a problem with giving individual people too much power. When the king summoned Bathsheba, do you think she wanted to go and sleep with him? Or was she maybe terrified of the consequences of disobeying her king's order? This situation could have been solved with women's rights and limitations on governmental power. Seems like when Samuel was trying to convince Israel that having a king was a bad idea, he could have proposed alternative forms of government, but no, it's got to be a king or a judge. Those are the options. Will he actually explain why porn is bad in the first place, or will he just assume that everyone should already just agree with him? To find out, tune in tomorrow. Same Rhino time, same Rhino channel.